Welcome to the Simply Vegan podcast, brought to you by the team at Vegan Food and Living, the UK's best-selling vegan magazine. This week, I chat to Joe and Mike Hill, founders of One Planet Pizza, who recently appeared on Mary Berry's new cookery show, Love to Cook. They share what Mary thought of the vegan meals that they cooked for her, the follow-up reaction on Gogglebox, and what it was like being vegan in the 80s. Welcome to the podcast, Joe and Mike. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Holly. Very well.
Very well, thanks. Yeah, good to be here.
You're the founders of One Planet Pizza, and you recently appeared on Mary Berry's Love to Cook show, which we'll chat about a bit later. I'm looking forward to hearing all about that. But let's start with your stories. Who went vegan first?
It's got to be me. I've got the age advantage over Joe, haven't I? So I've actually been vegan for 39 years.
Oh gosh, so, wow.
No, before it was a thing, before it was trendy, and people were just getting used to vegetarianism, and I decided to go vegan. So it was a step too far for my mum and dad, I think.
You went all out. So how did your parents react when you said you were going vegan?
Well, luckily, I was vegetarian when I was at home, and that was very much about just swapping ham sandwiches for cheese sandwiches. So that wasn't too bad. And then I was at university, so living away from home when I turned vegan. So it was only when I went back home that it was a bit of an issue. But fortunately, I've always enjoyed cooking. So a lot of the time I would just do my own meals. Anyway, I think it would have been much more of a problem if I hadn't enjoyed cooking so much.
Yeah. And at what point did you join him then, Joe?
So, it was always part of the family. It was always there in the background, and we were aware of it more than most people growing up. Interestingly, my mum comes from farming background. So her grandparents still alive in Norfolk and still live on a pig farm, not far from our vegan pizza production site. And so when she grew up, she ended up turning sort of vegetarian, pescatarian because of this just this awareness of the connection between the animals they were raising and what happened to them afterwards to get to the meats on the plate. And then I sort of followed suit when I was about 10 years old. We spent quite a lot of time growing up around the farm and visiting them. And I just made that connection from that age that she did. And I saw all these pigs and asked questions. And then I found out, the horrible journey that they go on. They're raised and slaughtered from a very young age. And I just thought, I don't want to be part of this. So then I rebelled in my own way, went vegetarian. And it just so happens that Mike was already vegan. So he was chuffed. My sister then followed suit, I think, a year after. So he was even more happy. And then I went vegan back in about 2014 when it became just so easy that I couldn't really avoid it or escape it anymore. And all these great food options were coming out. And I thought, well, why am I still eating all this nasty dairy when there are all these great alternatives around?
It's so interesting, isn't it? You hear that a lot, that people with, farming backgrounds, sort of parents or grandparents, end up going vegan because of what they see in their experiences. How do your grandparents feel about you being vegan then?
Not very positively. I think they're in their 80s. They're of a very different generation, and it's a different world to them. And they just think it's this crazy fad. They think we're, just very strange. It's all Mike's fault. He's a bad influence, and they probably still think we're going to end up start eating meat again soon.
Right.
They think it's a bit of a joke, and it annoys them in a way that it's kind of starting to impact on their industry. We're finally starting to rival meat and dairy, whereas before it was a bit of a novelty, and it was 1 in 10,000. It's now much bigger numbers, and it's a much bigger industry that has a lot more power and influence. So they are taking it a bit more seriously, but they'd still make fun of us at the dinner table.
Yeah, they won't be convinced then, I'm guessing.
I don't think. Yeah, some people you just won't ever change.
I think they have changed their diet a little bit over. They have started recognizing that they probably need to eat less meat and dairy. I don't think anyone can avoid that, even if they're in that livestock industry. So it's interesting. Certainly my mum and dad, after I went vegetarian, they towards the end of their life started changing their diet quite a lot and eating a lot less. So even if people don't make that big step of going vegan, there's a lot of small changes going on out there.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture what it's like sort of around the Christmas dinner table with your family. Because I know with mine there's a bit of conflicts there, and actually that's between veganism and vegetarianism, so it's not quite
we don't have it with them anymore, do we, Mike? That makes it not easy. we just stopped inviting them round, Holly. we now just we tell people if they want to come there and have a vegan Christmas dinner with us, it's almost a bit of a challenge, Mike, isn't it? So my girlfriend went vegan, and a lot of her family now have pretty much reduced all of their meat and dairy. And if we cook and show them how delicious a vegan Christmas meal can be, then they're quite happy for us to take the lead, and they'll give it a go.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love it. I love how there's that ripple effect, you do it, and then slowly, like, people around you are kind of a bit curious, a bit, start asking questions, and then obviously Mary Berry is of the older generation as well. How did this come about, you appearing on her show? It's called Love to Cook, isn't it? And it's a new show.
Yeah, it's been going, I think this is the third week this week, and we appeared last week in the second episode. I suspect that they contacted us. We were probably on their radar because we were actually did some filming with Dragon's Den about a year and a half ago. It never got showed because it wasn't sensational. It wasn't newsworthy enough, but I think that put us on the radar of the BBC. And when they were constructing this show and planning it, they wanted the focus for the videos, tapes where they cut out to us was around family-based UK businesses that are doing different things. So we seemed to fit the bill. We got an email. I think you got it initially, and as usual, you just don't know whether it's real to start off with. But a few phone calls later, it obviously was real. It was an honest, truthful proposal, and we were delighted to go on and meet Mary.
Amazing. What's she like then?
Go on, Joe. You go first.
I had a friend ask. We've had loads of messages since, and I had someone on LinkedIn, Mike, from university that I haven't spoke to in years, and they got in touch saying, "Go on then. What's she really like? Has she got a dark side? Is she, or is she just as nice as everyone thinks she is?" And I said that she is exactly how you'd imagine in real life. Just very sweet, sweet, friendly, polite, very English. Real proper lady, and very welcoming, genuinely interested, and even at her age wants to find out about new things and has this excitement about stuff she hasn't tried before.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. So you cooked 2 dishes, didn't you? So tell us about what you cooked and why you decided to cook them, because it's a lot of pressure, isn't it? You're sort of on primetime TV representing the vegans. And it's like, cook something amazing that Mary Berry's going to love. And
no pressure.
We're a bit out of our comfort zone because we weren't doing pizzas, although we did do one of our pizzas at the end for her. But we chose upon 2 dishes. So I cooked the first one, so I'll talk through that. So that was our scrambled tofu, which I've been doing for different variations of it for years, really. But we did a sort of deluxe one for her. So we did it with two different sorts of tofu, a firm and a silken, and obviously the turmeric. And then we introduced her to the black salt, which is the sort of secret ingredients, which isn't black at all, it's pink. So she was fascinated with that. And we added in a few other herbs and spices and served it with fresh chives sprinkled over the top on a nice slice of wholemeal seeded toast. So, and it I think it went down pretty well. The challenge was on because she said that she loves scrambled egg. She's a bit of a aficionado, and so I think we're always going to struggle a little bit with it. But she had a couple of mouthfuls of it, and then you did the full jackfruit, didn't you, Jack?
Yeah. So then after the scrambled tofu, we tried something a bit more probably exotic. So we talked about the incredible, exciting, trending fruit that is jackfruit, and it gave her a bit of a lowdown on that as a brilliant ingredient that's really versatile. So we showed her some pulled jackfruit, what it looks like when it's ready to start cooking with. And then we just fried that up with some garlic and onion, a really decent barbecue sauce that we blended up together and made ourselves with her. And then the secret ingredient that she was really excited to see in this recipe was the liquid smoke. So you can get it in sort of local health stores and online. And it's a pretty natural ingredient, but it's just got that incredible smoky flavor that's really powerful. And it just helps to ignite that jackfruit, which had already got the texture. And she was particularly fond of that because it was not like she wasn't comparing that to anything like for like. She knew it was a much healthier, natural alternative to something that's really quite unhealthy and just full of fat and salt. So she was, and we put that on a bao bun, and she was really impressed with that, Mike, wasn't she? It was really nice and sort of, it had really exciting flavors, really smoky, not too spicy, but quite light as well because it was a fruit rather than using something that was really meaty. So that was an easier sell for her, and she was quite impressed with that.
Okay. I just cannot get jackfruit right. I mean, I don't know if I've used liquid smoke on it. I do have that in my store cupboard actually, but I don't know why. Maybe it's just the sauce. I need to get that right. And then, because all I end up tasting is the jackfruit, and it's kind of a slightly weird flavor, isn't it? It's not a strong flavor, but it's sort of, I don't know how to describe it.
It's a bit like tofu, isn't it? In that it's all about what taste it absorbs as opposed to the core product. I mean, this one we didn't. Ideally, sometimes you need to marinate these things, overnight, so they really absorb the flavors. But we didn't do that on the Mary Berry show. It was actually a 10-minute fry up with the sauce and garlic and a few other things, and it seemed to absorb the flavor well. We need to come round and show you how to do it, Holly.
Okay, yeah, that'd be good. Bring some
Once you
pizzas.
see it yourself, you won't forget it, Holly, and then it will be stuck in your mind.
Yeah.
It was a shame actually because she was much happier with and more impressed with that recipe, but that wasn't what they then showed on the Gogglebox that followed. They picked up on the tofu scramble because it was a bit more controversial, and it was harder for her to be impressed with an egg replacement than it was this pulled pork replacement. So it was a shame really because she was really impressed with that one.
Oh, so was it on Gogglebox then? I haven't seen that.
That got 5 or 6 times more viewers, I think.
Wow.
And it was only 2 days later. So Mary Berry was Wednesday evening, Gogglebox was Friday evening, and it was really interesting to see the classic response still, I guess, of mainstream society, mainstream couples that they have on Gogglebox to veganism and particularly food like jackfruit and scrambled tofu.
To come on then, tell us, what did they all say? I haven't seen it.
The average person wasn't too receptive, Mike. They already had their preconceptions about veganism, and it just triggered them, didn't it? So a lot of them would be like, I had a meat-free meal the other day and didn't really like it, or what the hell is tofu? Is that something from the local Chinese restaurant that I had 5 years ago? And I think that's the purpose of the show, is just to be very critical, isn't it? And to get people's knee-jerk opinions. But I think generally it wasn't terrible, and they were, there were a few, particularly the younger people on Gogglebox, were a lot more open-minded, which is kind of the trend we see, and quite interested in how it was going to go. But they, the way they edit it, they just showed the more shocking bits when we were waiting for Mary's reactions and when we were cooking it, rather than the bit later on where she said actually that was quite nice. They'd always cut that bit because they want to make it a bit more controversial.
Exactly.
But we were happy they showed it regardless.
It's funny, isn't it, with different generations? I mean, do you think we're sort of wasting our time trying to think that sort of the older generation would go vegan and we should sort of focus on the younger generations?
I don't know. I think it'd be a shame if we did. I know it's more of a challenge. I think the reason why some of them may be the health rather than the environmental or sustainability type issues, because there's so many age-related and lifestyle-related illnesses and diseases which become more of a problem as you get older, that can be alleviated, or in some cases resolved totally through changing diet. So it's just a bit unfortunate, I think, that the mainstream dietary advice and mainstream nutritionists are still a little bit behind on their research, and are still quoting stuff that they were taught 20, 30 years ago, whereas we know there's such a weight of scientific evidence now that supports people of any change benefiting health-wise from increasing their plant base. And until we get the doctors and the nutritionists and NHS generally on board, I think it's going to be, they're not going to listen so much to, they're not going to listen to what we do and what you do through your magazine and media. I think it needs to be a job almost done on the politicians, on the health policy makers, if we're going to get that widespread change in those older age groups.
Yeah, definitely. We work with the plant-based health professionals, and it's something that they focus on a lot, obviously. Yeah, hopefully with a bit of campaigning, we might see a bit more attention given to plant-based nutrition in the sort of medical profession and the NHS.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about One Planet Pizza then. How did this start about? So presumably when sort of 2015, 2016, there weren't many vegan pizzas around, were there?
No, you couldn't get one for love nor money. There was it was really strange because you had this huge, rapid growth in vegan food across the UK, and UK was in particular incredibly strong, and lots of exciting brands popping up. And suddenly you could walk down any aisle, and there were the really exciting new products everywhere and great alternatives. But a lot of brands tended to focus on your burgers, sausages, and chicken. And now they're obviously looking at fish and other alternatives. But for some reason, pizza, which is the world's most consumed takeaway food, it's one of the top selling frozen products every year in the UK. Yet it was really under indexing in terms of the vegan offerings. So that's what really stood out for us, having already been vegan and bought these food types. It just became painfully obvious that you just still couldn't get hold of a decent alternative to what is just a ridiculous amount of choice when you walk down the chilled or frozen aisles in any supermarket. There's hundreds of different pizzas, and there just weren't any vegan options at all. We just found it crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you always dream of finding this niche, don't you? And obviously you actually found one. I went vegan around that time as well, and I remember you guys kind of coming onto the scene and just being really excited about all these new things that you could suddenly buy. It just goes to show, doesn't it, how much the market has just exploded in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. We looked at the stats, Mike, didn't we? And they reckon now that roughly 1 in 3 households are opting for meat-free meals on a weekly basis. So you could argue that a third of the population are looking for meat alternatives now, which is just amazing. Especially when Mike was a vegan on his own back in the 80s, he probably wouldn't have dreamt of this change.
On his own, bless him. Just the one vegan.
There was 2 of us actually. My best friend was vegan as well.
Oh, that's so cute. I mean, what did you used to eat back in the 80s?
Well, actually, I always say it was a lot easier to be a healthy vegan back then because there wasn't the temptation of all of these substitutes and the chocolate, the ice cream, the burgers and the sausages. So, I mean, I was really the ultimate whole food, plant-based vegan, and that I was, having a lot of lentils, pulses and beans, eating a lot of salads and fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. And lived quite happily and healthily, and was probably one of the only students that managed to save some money from my grants because I used to go along to the local Whole Food shops and buy sacks of this stuff, and it would last me for ages. And even the beans, I'd be buying them dried, soaking them overnight and then cooking them, not even buying those in a tin because the tins weren't around. So
God.
I know it's unbelievable, isn't it? But it took a little bit more time and planning ahead. But I do believe that it was probably a fair bit more healthy now. And I think the people that are new to eating plant-based or vegan, we just need to make sure that they are eating a healthy diet as well, because Otherwise, it's going to be self-defeating. Imagine if someone goes vegan, eats a load of junk food, and then is ill. You just know that they're going to be, advised by doctors, friends, or relatives, and to change their diet. The fact that you can be equally unwell on a meat and dairy based fast food diet, it doesn't really matter. So I think it's really important that we don't lose that whole foods element of the vegan diet.
Yeah, definitely. Perhaps sort of talking about plant-based rather than vegan might help, I guess. I mean, the great thing is, though, and, hopefully most people do realise that processed or ready-made things that you buy in the supermarket are designed to be convenience foods that you're going to have. I mean, life's so busy, isn't it? I mean, I've got 2 kids, a job, like most people, and I've also got a very annoying cocker spaniel that needs walking twice a day. So there's not a lot of time that I have free. And sometimes it's just like, oh my God, what are we going to have for tea? And pizza is one of those kind of things that is just the classic, chuck it in the oven. Yeah. Everyone loves it. You can serve it up with a load of salad. So, it's great that we do have these foods now, and we're very lucky. So let's talk about cheese, because obviously one of the key ingredients is cheese, isn't it? For the pizza. So did you struggle to find a good one when you launched?
Yeah, it was what took the longest, wasn't it, Mike? Yeah, we'd been making pizzas ourselves since I was a kid. So making the dough as healthy as possible but still tasty was really easy because we had all the experience there, and it's kind of accidentally vegan already. And then we just used our sort of normal family recipe sauce, but we made that a bit healthier by thickening it with chia seeds, which is one of our nice little USPs that you can't get anywhere else. And then when it came to the cheese, we had to really start doing some proper research and tested. I think by now we've tested hundreds, but back then there were probably 5 or 6 that we could potentially use.
Yeah.
And we did some small focus groups in Norwich, where we're still based, and tested them on the local vegan community. And then we broadened it to vegetarians and meat eaters to make sure that it was good enough and stood the test. Which is always, if it's good enough for a meat eater, then it's going to be good enough for everyone else.
Yeah.
Because they're the most critical vegan pizza eaters. So we actually started with Bute Island's cheese. Cheese. So cheese with an S. And it was very good back then. But as time went on, and more competition was coming out in vegan cheese, and a lot of people were testing and putting a lot of research and development into the area, we then worked closely with V-Bites, who are based up in Newcastle, massive vegan cheese factory up there. And we worked with their food technologists and developed what we think was an improvement, because we added in that stretchability, that sort of stringiness that you expect on a pizza in particular, and managed to achieve that with this incredible food technologist sort of leading on that project. And that's still what we use today, which I just don't think there is another vegan cheese out there that's as good for a pizza. So we're spending most of our time at events, and when we talk to new people, new customers, about how good the vegan cheese is, and it's just try it and then let us know. But we're pretty convinced that everyone will like it.
Yeah. Is that owned by Heather Mills, V-Bites?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep trying to get her on the show, but she's a busy lady.
She's still the most famous person in our phone books, Mike, isn't she?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So does this provide you both with like a full-time career now?
Yeah, I've got another business which I spend a couple of days a week on. So I sort of split my time between One Planet Pizza and my other business, which is in a totally different sector. But Joe's, for the last 4 years, Joe's been full-time. The management team's grown recently. We had some investment back early part of 21. So we've now got a really good commercial manager, production manager, and soon to join us is an excellent marketing manager as well. So we're really investing in that senior management team now to get ready for a period of rapid growth.
So where are you stocked at the moment?
At the moment, our sort of solid base, if you like, is independent whole food stores around the UK. So we're in about 400 of them across the UK and into Ireland. And then on top of that, you can find us in Ocado, Whole Foods down in London, Booths, which is like a supermarket chain up in the north. And we're just launching in quite a lot of export countries. So we've been in Holland for a couple of years, but we've just sent over our first batch of pizzas to some new countries like Sweden, Finland, Greece, and France, and a few others. And shortly, we should be sending over in the new year half a container of pizzas to Australia, believe it or not. So traveling halfway around the world, and that will be our first listing over in Australia and New Zealand as well.
Amazing. Do you think you'll end up in like the sort of mainstream supermarkets in the UK?
Yeah, those conversations are happening now. So hopefully middle part of next year. That would be, and the time's probably right now. We've brought the price down of the pizzas compared to what they were 2 or 3 years ago. And certainly we've got a couple of the supermarket chains who are interested. It just takes a little bit of time to work through.
Brilliant. Okay, that's what we want to hear. I want to be able to nip around the corner and grab one on a Friday night.
Right.
We also spent a lot of the pandemic building our direct-to-consumer website, Holly. So we do lots of really exciting collaborations with other vegan brands and do some website-exclusive pizzas and new product launches to test them on the website. So we can actually do UK-wide next-day delivery, a bit like All Plants, but just frozen pizza. So that's quite a unique offering that we've focused on as well.
Oh, that's very exciting. Well, just to wrap up, Joe, did you ever think you'd end up running a vegan pizza business?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I dreaded to think what I'd end up doing, to be honest, Holly. I was happy if I was just going to end up with a job, but no, it feels right, and it's very fulfilling, and we're certainly at the start of the journey rather than towards the end. So it's a bit of a lifelong project for me. Probably not so much for Mike, but it's good fun. It's testing, and there's a lot of hard work and a lot still to come. But if we can get less people eating meat and dairy, then we're happy at the end of the day.
Definitely. It's just amazing to work in a career that kind of aligns with your ethics, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like work when you're doing that.
Exactly. Well, you can watch Mary Berry's Love to Cook on iPlayer if you want to check out the episode featuring Joe and Mike, and also Gogglebox, which I'll need to have a look at, which I haven't watched yet. So will that be on? Is that on More 4?
That's on channel, More 4, channel 4, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Thanks, Holly.
Nice to chat, Holly. Bye.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and please do share with your friends, like and subscribe on your platform of choice. Next Tuesday, Molly and I will be back with our reviews of all the Christmas ranges at the supermarkets. And next Thursday, I'll be chatting to Juliette Galatly from Viva, who talks about helping farmers to transition to a plant-based future and ditching factory farming for good.